Hello, this is Ken Ferry with this week's Boats in the Field report. Today we're on the road. We're up at Osage, Iowa, doing a hand harvest for our flex plot, and got a great bunch of volunteers up here helping us with the counting and the weighing and everything that goes on up here. And this area, probably more than other areas, have seen some wide variation in their growing season. So I've asked a group of our growers here to kind of give us an update on how their season was and what the outcome was. So we'll kind of do a little bit of a round robin crop report here on the boots today. So I'll have them say their name and where they're from and give us a description.
Thanks, Ken. My name's Justin Krell. I'm from Blooming Prairie, Minnesota, the south central portion of the state. And kind of looking back at the season, we had a opportunity to get some early beans in early, which was good. Actually had a little bit of a cold rain delay in the meantime, but for the most part, our crop went in pretty well in that first part of May, maybe a little bit later than what we had normally had, but good conditions, I guess, throughout May, and then wet. Ours turned pretty wet in June, July, and then pretty much shut off August and September for the most part. And,
Feast and famine. Huh?
Feast and famine, that's exactly right. For the most part, I would say, our disease pressure held off until the end. We had to really fight it there once we got to the end. Experienced southern rust again this year, worse than it was the year prior, and then kind of a late batch of tar spot. Was happy, just as I look at our crops, we're mostly all strip till, no till, and for the most part, yield wise, I was really happy with our yields over last year. We had a few farms, and the interesting part, some of our poorer farms were actually our best farms this year, and so I thought that was kind of interesting. The other thing too, 2-pass fungicide. This is our first year trying that. We were really happy with how things came out. My dad was awfully skeptical. It was definitely wetter. I got that comment when he was combining that it was a little wetter, but it was yielding more. So we were happy with that second pass. So soybean wise, probably our best crop of beans we've ever had. We were really happy with our bean crop overall. And I'd say our early planted beans maybe didn't quite have the edge. It's been about a 7-8 bushel advantage. The last 3 years we planted beans early in that April window. This year they're probably a little bit more like our later planted, just the way the season went.
Not much disease in the beans?
No. I was ready for sudden death. Typically we fight a lot of sudden death. We've been trying to fight that with some seed treatments and hybrid or variety selection in that case. But for the most part, disease in the soybeans were very low, and I think that's what contributed to our nice yields.
Great. Appreciate that, Justin.
Ethan Emil, Castelia, Iowa. We're way far northeast corner of Iowa. It was a cool start. Anything planted before May kind of had tough stands. Once you got into May, it seemed like once you started, you could go until you were done. It was pretty quiet most of the summer. Everything was pretty good. We didn't have a shot of rain over 2 inches in one shot until the end of August, but we were never really lacking rain either. It kind of come when we needed it to. Disease at the end was definitely the story. It was probably 50, 60, 80 bushel difference between one side of the fence and the other, depending on how you manage stuff. Southern rust coming early, northern coming early, tar spot coming late. If you managed rust, the corn was a lot like last year, pretty good crop. If you didn't, it was dry and it was probably not as good. Beans were as good as they've been. Disease pressure's pretty low. A lot of beans that got planted in April got replanted. Stuff planted the first part of May seemed like come through good, and beans in general, talking to a lot of people, were just pretty good.
And the disease on the corn, a lot of difference between varieties, or just everything getting hit hard?
There was certain varieties took it worse. Rust got a lot of them. That seemed to get most of them. There was a couple varieties that took it worse than others, but overall it seemed like if you had one that didn't get hit, that was way more an outlier than one that did.
Yeah. And southern rust for you guys is a 2 in 10 years maybe?
Yeah, I don't know if you talk to a lot of guys and they've never seen it before. Yeah. So whether we didn't look for it or didn't see it, but nothing like this before.
Yeah, it was pretty rough when I was up here in July as far as the amount of damage it had already done by then. Okay, appreciate that, Ethan.
Thanks, Ken. Dan Marsh, Northeast Iowa, Butler County. I'll start with soybeans. Pretty good year for them, probably 5 bushels off of our all-time high. We got them all planted around mid-April to April 20th. The story on beans for us this year was tile. ground that was tiled did much better. Very little disease, and probably 5 bushel off our all-time high. I'll switch over to corn. We planted corn later, first week in May to the second week of May, and corn was all about rain. Through our corridor, we had way too much rain. I was told 23 inches in June and July. Tiled ground did better. We're 5 bushels worse than last year on corn, and probably 35 to 40 bushel off of our all-time highs from 5 years ago, 6 years ago. Southern rust was a big problem. It was variety specific. I had a side-by-side on corn, was a 75 bushel to the acre difference with one variety. And another test I did was 50 bushel to the acre difference, and I've never had that before. So Southern rust hurt us a lot, and what I was told, we haven't had it since the early 90s. That pretty well summarizes our season. It was all about rain and rust.
Rain and rust. Okay.
Yeah.
Appreciate that, Dan.
Scott Childroth, Rhinebeck, Iowa. We started out planting beans in early April and had a good go with the early planting beans. We sat and waited till May 4th to start planting corn, started our corn then, finished around May 13th. I had a good window to plant our corn in, good conditions, probably a little dry right then. Had some beans that struggled coming up. We replanted a field of early planted beans the 15th of May. First time we've had to do that on early planted beans, but it turned out okay. Got our corn up, we got sprayed. Had a little issue with what looked like buggy whip corn, and it was kind of hybrid specific. Got our side dressing done by V8, then June turned on really wet, and we kind of forgot about how wet June was and nitrogen loss that probably went on during June. July kind of tamed back down again for our crop. Everything kind of was going along pretty well till we started pollinating. Then we got into some smoke, rain events, fog. Then we got into some tassel wrap issues with some of the hybrids that maybe didn't affect our pollination, the tassel wrap, but those particular plants then made a banana ear. So there was maybe some yield issues that came along with that, not from the pollination side, just from the
Not having all the leaves out.
yeah, it struggled there. But we did have some hybrids that were trying to pollinate during like a 4 or 5 day window where we had fog and rain, and that hurt them on their yield. Same hybrid planted a little bit later, probably could have been 20 bushel better just from timing of pollination. But overall, we got through that and we're feeling pretty good with some of our yield estimates. And then along came Southern rust, which I'd never fought before. So we did our due diligence of scouting and spraying, and kind of were smelling a rat on our fungicides not lasting the full 2 or 3 weeks that the label may claim it does. And we're back in there at 18 days and finding that some disease is starting to break again. And so we called in the airplanes again for another round. And so we fought Southern rust the first go around, and like Ken's alluded to in the past, and then it was tar spot that started coming after us. The second spraying was more for tar spot for us. We sprayed a lot of fields twice, and really glad we did. Did not have to pick any down corn. Nobody wants to do that. We did get to dry every bushel this fall, which is a good thing. We had a wonderful fall as far as weather goes. The boys grumbled an awful lot about combining 10, 11% beans that were green and tough and growling and going slow, but bean yields were solid, corn yields were solid if you took care of everything from the side dress and a fungicide standpoint. I think everybody's pretty pleased with how the fall rolled out, at least for us. Got all our tillage done just in time before we got blessed with 14 inches of snow over Thanksgiving. So a challenging year from the rain standpoint, and disease standpoint, nitrogen management's always a big deal. Rootworm beetles are still there. We'll be up against them next year, just like always, but we don't take our foot off the gas on those either. Looking forward to revising our yield maps again and deciding
What worked, what didn't.
what didn't work.
You see the pollination issue here today in these hand counts. Some it's at the base of the ear where the beginning of pollination was wet, and then some is at the end of the ear where the tip of the ear didn't pollinate well. Some of these different hybrids in here you can tell got tossed around by having a wet pollination window.
Yeah, it was a fun year. We'll probably do it again next year.
I hope so. Appreciate it, Scott. Thanks, you guys, for all your input. Everybody will enjoy it. Thanks. To stay up to date, check out our website at croptechinc.com and subscribe to our podcast, Boots in the Field Report. Keep her safe, keep her moving.